Larry Bird just detonated the biggest shockwave of 2025. A blast so loud it has LeBron James and Kevin Durant scrambling to figure out what just hit them. The man who built his reputation on ice-cold jumpers, savage trash talk, and an iron will didn't come after rivals on the court this time. He came after the modern era itself, calling out today's biggest stars for what he believes is a growing disrespect toward the history that made the NBA what it is. What was supposed to be a calm, nostalgic conversation about how basketball has evolved turned into a full-scale firestorm splitting fans, analysts, former players, and active superstars right down the middle. And trust me, once you hear what Bird actually said, you'll rethink everything you thought you understood about legacy, loyalty, and what it truly means to honor the game. Because when Larry Bird speaks, the basketball world doesn't just listen, it stops. This is the man who turned Boston into a dynasty. The man who stood toe-to-toe with Magic Johnson in the greatest rivalry the sport has ever seen. The man who played through injuries that would put most guys on the bench for months. 3-time MVP. 3 NBA championships. A competitive spirit so fierce that opponents dreaded seeing him walk into the arena. Larry Bird wasn't just another great player. He was a seismic force who reshaped the league. So when Larry Legend decides he's had enough of the way today's stars carry themselves, this isn't some old head versus new school rant. It's a warning flare from someone who lived through the most brutal, competitive, unforgiving era of the NBA and came out a champion. And early this year, during a conversation that was never meant to go viral, he finally let the world know what's been bothering him for a long, long time. Bird talked about watching today's superstars, especially LeBron and Durant, and noticing something missing. Not the talent, not the skill, not the athleticism, but something deeper, something fundamental, something he believes every great player must have: respect, humility, and an understanding of the giants who built the league before them. Bird didn't sugarcoat anything. He said it bluntly. Too many modern stars act like the NBA started the moment they stepped on the court. Like the legends of the past were somehow less skilled, less tough, less important. And to Bird, a guy who literally helped drag the NBA into mainstream popularity, that's not just inaccurate, it's disrespectful on a personal level. You could hear the frustration in his voice. This wasn't about numbers or stats or highlight reels. It was about honor, about remembering that every dollar, every rule, every arena, every fan base was built on the backs of players who sacrificed everything for the game long before social media, load management, and supermax contracts. So what exactly did LeBron and KD do to trigger such a strong response? The answer: nothing directly. And that's the problem. The disrespect Bird is talking about is subtle. It's in the comments, the interviews, the tone. It's a quiet implication that the game back then was somehow primitive compared to now. LeBron has repeatedly referred to himself as the greatest player ever, something Bird never would have said publicly about himself. He's talked about how the modern era is smarter, more skilled, more demanding, implying older generations simply couldn't hang. Durant has taken similar shots, often online, suggesting players from the 80s and 90s would struggle in today's offensive systems. He's joked about how easy it would have been to dominate past eras because the game wasn't as advanced. None of these quotes shocked anyone, until Larry Bird finally said what a lot of older players have been quietly thinking. Because the truth is, LeBron and KD are legendary talents. No one denies that. But they're playing in a league shaped, elevated, and protected by guys like Bird, Magic, Kareem, and Jordan. Players who laid the bricks of the NBA empire long before billion-dollar TV deals and global marketing existed. Bird pointed out that today's stars benefit from rule changes created specifically to protect players. They benefit from advanced training, science-based recovery, private jets, nutritionists, and more guaranteed money than ever. And yet, many act like they dominate any era with no problem. For Bird, the lack of gratitude is what pushed him over the edge. So what did he actually say? He made his stance clear. I respect the talent. LeBron is phenomenal. Durant can score on anyone. But what bothers me is this attitude that basketball started with them. Like nothing before them mattered. That's just wrong. And once he got going, he didn't hold back. He talked about how players back then got knocked to the floor and were expected to get up without a whistle. There was no load management, no resting because the playoffs were months away, no super team hopping. Guys played hurt because fans paid money to see them perform. Period. Then Bird went straight at the modern narrative that today's players would dominate any era. You think scoring 30 was easy when you had the bad boy Pistons trying to put you in the third row? You think winning championships was simple when every team had multiple Hall of Famers and nobody joined up with their friends to stack the deck? Bird's voice carried pain, not anger. You could hear the emotion, the years of physical punishment, the pride, the grind. To him, the modern generation isn't just overlooking history, they're erasing it. And he didn't stop there. He brought up something fans constantly debate: how today's stars chase easier paths. They demand trades when a situation gets tough. They build super teams. They control rosters, coaches, and front offices in ways past players never could dream of. Then he said the line that's now gone viral everywhere: in our day you stayed. You fought. You didn't run to an easier road. You made your road work. He specifically referenced how LeBron has changed teams multiple times, and how Durant joined the Warriors right after they beat him. He wasn't mocking them. He was calling out the idea that easier paths somehow equal greater legacy. You can win that way, sure, but don't tell me you're better than guys who stayed and battled the hard way. Don't disrespect what we built when your path was paved with advantages we never had. Within hours, the internet exploded. Half the basketball world sided with Bird, praising him for saying what needed to be said. They argued that the old school was tougher, more physical, more loyal. That modern stars are protected, pampered, and more focused on brand than basketball legacy. The other half came out swinging for LeBron and KD. They posted stats, accolades, highlights. They argued that Bird was stuck in the past. That today's game is more skilled, more spaced, more competitive. That LeBron's longevity alone makes him untouchable. One viral comment summed up their argument: Bird needs to understand the king changed the game. And just like that, one conversation turned into the biggest generational battle the NBA has seen in years, with Larry Bird standing right in the middle, refusing to back down. KD supporters didn't stay quiet for long. They fired back immediately, flooding social media with clips of Durant's impossible jumpers, his flawless efficiency, his 7-foot scoring versatility that no one from the 80s ever had to deal with. They argued that Larry Bird wouldn't stand a chance guarding a player like KD in today's game, that the athletes now are simply different, stronger, faster, smarter. Old heads need to stop clinging to the past became the rallying cry of the younger generation. But here's where things took a turn no one expected. The pushback wasn't just coming from older fans. It came from every corner of the NBA community. Teenagers, adults, former players, casuals, purists, all agreeing on one thing: Bird wasn't just complaining. He was exposing a truth that made a lot of people uncomfortable. Former players started chiming in too, many of them siding with Bird. They spoke about the physicality of their era, the psychological toughness required to survive, and the brotherhood among players who carried a deep respect for the game's heritage. They remembered studying Russell, Wilt, Oscar, West, not because they had to, but because honoring the past was part of the job. And then came the comment that changed the entire tone of the debate: why is it so hard for modern players to just say thank you to the legends who came before them? It hit different, because the more you think about it, the more you realize Bird isn't asking for praise. He's asking for acknowledgement. A simple recognition of the foundation that was built long before LeBron, KD, or any modern superstar ever touched a basketball. That's it. That's the whole point. But the conversation didn't stop there. In fact, it started trending nationally. Sports shows dedicated entire segments to it. Analysts argued passionately on both sides, some defending Bird, saying he earned the right to speak honestly, others claiming he was out of touch and trapped in nostalgia. Some insisted this was just another chapter of the eternal old school versus new school debate. But the most interesting reactions came from fans stuck in the middle, People who love both eras, who appreciate both Bird and LeBron, both Magic and KD. These fans understood that LeBron and Durant are incredible talents, but they also felt uneasy about how quickly modern players dismiss past generations. One comment summed it up perfectly. Can't we just respect everyone? But in today's hot take culture, nuance isn't what goes viral. Conflict does. And this conflict exposed something deeper than just basketball opinions. To understand what's really happening, you have to look beyond the highlights, beyond the arguments, and beyond the stats. This controversy is about legacy and how we honor the people who built the game before us. When Bird talks about respect, he's invoking an unwritten code from his generation. Players understood that they were part of a long story that started before they were born. They studied it. They protected it. They passed it down. Guys like Bird, Magic, Kareem, Russell, they carried themselves with the belief that the NBA wasn't theirs. It was something they had the privilege to contribute to. Today, that code is disappearing. And not just in basketball. Across sports, music, movies, culture, everywhere, there's this growing mindset that history is irrelevant. That whatever is happening now is automatically superior to anything that came before. That the past is outdated instead of foundational. Bird sees that attitude as arrogance. And he's not wrong. Because acknowledging that previous generations had to fight through different, and in many ways harder, challenges doesn't diminish modern players. It enhances them. When LeBron says, "I'm building on what Jordan, Kareem, Magic, and Bird did," it elevates his legacy. When KD says, "Those older players paved the way so today's players could thrive," it adds weight to his own accomplishments. But instead of humility, what Bird sees is dismissiveness, small digs, evasive comments, and an attitude that suggests basketball history is divided into two categories, before LeBron and after LeBron. That's not just inaccurate, it's disrespectful. Bird's frustration also brings attention to another major shift in the NBA, the fading concepts of loyalty and toughness. When players demand trades after one frustrating season, when they take nights off because of rest, while fans pay hundreds of dollars for a ticket, when super teams get assembled through group chats rather than built through grind and development, the DNA of competition changes. And Bird, a man who spent his entire career with one franchise, playing through brutal injuries, feels like something valuable has been lost in the modern game. This isn't about resisting change. And it's not about keeping the past on a pedestal. It's about protecting the values that made basketball great to begin with: grit, humility, consistency, gratitude. Bird's point is simple. Modern players can be great without acting like the legends before them didn't exist. But the story gets even deeper. Because beneath all the debates, there's an uncomfortable reality. Modern NBA stars have more control, more power, more visibility, and more privilege than any generation before them. And with great privilege comes great responsibility. Bird closed his comments with what might be the most powerful message of the entire controversy. He talked about humility, something he believes is becoming rare in sports today. He talked about honor, about knowing that you're part of an unbroken chain stretching back 75 years. He talked about sacrifice, the struggles the previous generations endured so today's players could enjoy fame, endorsements, massive contracts, and global influence. He said, "When we played, we understood we stood on the shoulders of giants. Guys like Russell and Chamberlain went through things we couldn't imagine. Racism, low pay, no TV deals, no respect. We respected that. We honored that. What I see now is a generation that thinks they deserve everything without acknowledging anyone." Is he wrong? When was the last time LeBron gave a long, passionate tribute to the legends who shaped his career? When has Kevin Durant gone out of his way to publicly thank the players who built the union, the contracts, the fame, and the spotlight he enjoys today? These moments are rare. And when they do happen, they don't feel heartfelt. They feel scripted. Bird believes this lack of humility will come back to haunt today's stars. Because legacy isn't just about what you accomplish. It's about how future generations remember you. And players who dismiss the past will eventually be dismissed by the generations that follow them. It's a cycle. and it never stops. So what can LeBron and KD learn from this moment? It's simple. Gratitude amplifies greatness. Respect multiplies legacy. Humility deepens impact. When you acknowledge those who came before, you don't look weaker. You look timeless. Bird's message is not an attack. It's an invitation, a call for today's stars to reconnect with the soul of the sport, to understand that the NBA didn't start with them and won't end with them, to realize that respecting the past enriches the present. And where this debate goes next, that depends entirely on how today's players respond. They can continue down a path of dismissive comments and inflated egos, or they can choose humility, acknowledge the past, and write their legacy in a way that strengthens the entire story of basketball. Bird has thrown down the gauntlet. The ball is now in the modern star's court. But this controversy isn't over, not even close. Behind the scenes, there's a response brewing that could flip this entire debate on its head. Something that's going to force every player, every fan, and every analyst to rethink everything they believe about eras, greatness, and the meaning of legacy. Because what Larry Bird just didn't just spark a debate. He exposed a wound inside basketball culture that's been ignored for far too long.